their mothers. The boys get aggressive. The girls cry for help. Eye-opening research suggests more women can read feelings. More men can read maps. Women notice fine details. Men see things in 3D. Do our differences affect our parenting?
Aren't women in general better nurturers?
No. Next question.
How about jobs that demand strength? If a woman is willing but weak, should she be hired?
People have to be given a chance.
In combat too?
This is such a bizarre social experiment. Lives are so at risk.
Should gender influence our place in society? Some research says yes. Some people don't want you to hear about it.
This is harmful and damaging to our daughters' lives and to our mothers' lives. And I'm very angry about it.
You've never heard honest talk like this before. The facts and the fiction about a very touchy subject.
Girls are boring. Boys are a pain in the butt.
Boys and girls are different. Men, women, and the sex difference with John Stossel.
Good evening. Tonight, a touchy subject. To some people, even suggesting there are differences between the sexes beyond the obvious ones is just unacceptable. A step backwards in the hard-fought battle for equality. But let's face it, any couple who's ever fought over the remote control or whether to stop the car to ask for directions knows that men and women just often operate differently. So where does the difference come from? If it's all bred into us by people like toy makers who steer boys toward these trucks, girls to the dolls, and by teachers, parents, employers, all the wicked influences of a sexist society, then maybe this is a social problem that needs to be fixed. But if we're born different, if we think differently because our brains are different, then trying to fix these differences will be pointless, expensive, even hurtful. So which is it? Born, bred, both? Tonight, we're going to show you evidence that we're just born different.
What's the difference between men and women, boys and girls? This girl knows about boys.
They're very, very bad.
In fact, these girls are quite clear about it.
I think boys are a pain in the butt.
And the boys know about girls.
Boring. Girls are boring.
Whoa, these are not the correct things to say. This is the age of unisex. And we all know that except for some body parts, men and women are the same, equally able to be good or bad. I learned that from the women's movement. The movement freed us from the absurd narrowness of traditional sex roles.
But it is wretchedly boring to be with little tiny children one end of the day, the other, especially if you think that you should love it.
No longer would women be imprisoned by their role as caretaker. They could get out of the house, run for office, protect society. They could do everything.
Well, tonight has finally come for me.
And men wouldn't have to be breadwinners. We could be house husbands. We could revel in the intimacy of parenting that eluded our fathers and grandfathers. So much changed because of feminism. It's easy to forget how sexist our culture once was.
My wife is cleaner!
Any woman that can get a shirt this clean has to be loved.
This is the kind of stuff that ran when I was a kid, and we just accepted this as normal.
Who does it all? The laundry, the dishes, and tropical fishes.
That's what mommies are for.
Of course, lots of women were working, but the message was that it wasn't natural. Better that women should stay home and celebrate the joys of having new appliances.
Me, captain, you, crew. First order.
With brainwashing like that, no wonder few girls had set out to be explorers or doctors or entrepreneurs.
So remember, be a good little Maxwell housewife or somebody walks the plank.
Equal pay for equal work.
What a relief the women's movement was.
Equal pay for equal work. When do we want it now?
Now laws were passed banning discrimination against women. Affirmative action would force companies to give women the jobs they deserve. And now we would raise boys and girls as equals. Each would be free to pursue any role, any career.
Some mommies are doctors.
Some daddies are bakers.
Equal numbers.
Yeah.
50-50.
Absolutely.
Bella Abzug was one of the movement's early leaders.
Just as many women architects, engineers.
Well, yes.
But equal numbers didn't happen. There just aren't as many female engineers and architects today. And women still earn, on average, 25% less than men. And men, well, we still aren't doing all that much around the house.
Why? Why weren't things changing more? I couldn't figure it out. I read in Ms. Magazine that it was because we were still being influenced by our sexist culture.
Busy weekend? Wish there were 10 more of you.
The ads aren't as blatantly sexist, but it's still Mom doing the laundry.
Wow!
And look what the kids are still watching.
I'm Mom. I'll turn on the water. Time for dinner.
Mega tough, mega cool, mega bot.
Even Sesame Street, the most politically correct of shows. Bert, Ernie, Grover, Elmo, almost all the strong characters are he's. And check out the toy store. The boy toys are in one section, the cars, the trucks, the weapons. And where's the girls section? Look for that sea of pink. That's where the dolls are. Obviously, sexist businessmen are still polluting the children's minds. No wonder we don't have equality between sexes. Patriarchal toy sellers, TV producers, and parents steer the kids into the stereotypical roles.
That's what I was taught, and I believed it, until I had kids.
We treated them the same, but they were just so different. I don't just mean my kids. You'd see it in their friends, too. The girls were, well, more civilized. They'd look you in the eye, talk to you. They cared about your feelings. The boys, well, the boys wanted to go to war. The girls cared more about playing with each other, talking, cooperating.
You'll be the princess, yes?
And they spent lots of time dressing up in frilly clothes. We didn't tell them to. They just focused on being pretty and dainty.
We're both fairies. Me and her are fairies.
There were plenty of exceptions, of course, but the pattern was clear. Kids were acting just like their stereotypes, despite our attempts at sex-neutral parenting.
I refused to give him guns. I would not be the person to arm my child, but he made guns out of carrots and cucumbers, and...
We would buy them toys, the same toy.
This woman has twins. One boy, one girl.
They would just treat them differently.
You must have sent them different signals. You encouraged him to be active, her to be nurturing.
No. We gave them each trucks, and she just wouldn't play with the trucks. And he would.
Terry was pleased when her sons picked up Barbie dolls.
And they got their Barbies, took them to the table, and immediately started sword fighting with them. My daughter, on the other hand, took Barbie out of the box and said, "Oh, Barbie, you're so beautiful, but you need more makeup." And I don't even wear makeup.
That's the right word.
Her husband was disappointed, too.
Like, I was really convinced that, you know, I would have non-violent children for a non-violent world. And when my boys started, you know, turning bread into guns and banging each other, I felt bad.
Hi, Dinah.
Then their kids joined us. Are they aware of these differences? Well, the older ones know what they're supposed to say.
There is actually no difference between girls and boys. They're actually quite similar.
But the younger kids tell a different story.
Boys are noisier.
And girls?
Yeah. The boys play a lot rougher. I'm lucky.
So maybe toy makers aren't being sexist. Maybe they're just paying attention to their market. People who study the toy business, like advertising age columnist Kate Fitzgerald, say toy makers tried selling predominantly male toys like video games to girls, like this Barbie game. But they haven't had much success. This Cabbage Patch doll for boys named Rough and Tough isn't a hit either.
And they've really tried?
Toy marketers have tried over and over. They'd make twice as much money if every toy was bought equally by girls and boys. But kids aren't buying it.
Toy companies often hire psychologists, like Dr. Selena Goober, to run tests like this one she did for us.
Okay, you look around.
She brings kids to a table of toys and lets them pick out what they want. Invariably, the boys pick action figures like Power Rangers or gross stuff like this Gak.
What would you do with it?
I would throw it in my sister's face.
The girls played with Gak too, but no one talked about throwing it. And I'm sorry, mostly they played with the makeup.
What you see on the shelves is the reality of what has worked. Girls tend to want dolls, girls want pink. Girls are more concerned with the relationships between the characters. Girls want to talk and play and be together. The toy companies have lost millions of dollars in testing and manufacturing toys that they thought would win over the opposite gender. They've only responded to what kids want.
Why are kids still acting today the way they did a generation ago? Is this behavior just innate, something in the kids? Many feminists who launched the women's movement say, no, it's the culture. And we parents are also to blame because no matter how liberated we are, we still treat our kids differently.
Even parents who are very aware, as you are, of trying not to perpetuate gender differences, still pick up and cuddle little girls more than boys. They let boys cry longer, as if to toughen them.
Sexist parenting, she says, is what makes the boys aggressive.
We badly need to raise our boys more like our girls.
If society weren't sexist, the kids would be roughly the same? The boys would nurture the dolls?
I think so. I think it would be very much more interchangeable.
What about those who say there are biological differences?
I think that's a lot of poppycock.
And yet, from the world of science, there are other voices. Quieter voices, perhaps, but a chorus of voices that are saying what parents and others, sexist or not, have been saying for years.
Men and women are not the same.
Psychologist June Reinisch is a former director of the Kinsey Institute.
Equality means that people should have equal opportunities. It doesn't mean that everybody is the same, or that we want everybody to be the same. We'd have everybody being identical and wanting to do the same things and wanting to act in the same ways. It would be devastating to our culture. Difference is good.
And the difference is real, say the scientists, and there from the beginning. It starts in the womb, where we are just biologically hardwired to be different. We'll show you why they say that after this.
Have you ever noticed? Baby girls study faces. Boys are content to look off into space. Is this why most women read people better? Men, women, and the sex difference will continue in a moment.
Men are obsessed with sports. Women have more friends. A wife is bothered by a dripping faucet. Her husband doesn't even notice. Why? Scientists now say a lot of it comes down to chemistry. Right after the sperm meets the egg, things start to happen that just make us into different kinds of people.
You're driving me crazy.
Okay, this is right, because I remember that house. I think we turn right here.
I don't.
Well, I do. Wait a minute, I'll check it on the map. I don't think this map shows where we are at all.
Women have trouble with maps, but remember landmarks.
See, don't you remember those rocks down there?
No, I don't.
Men won't ask for directions.
We could ask this guy.
He doesn't know where we're going.
If these differences are just stereotypes, why does this sound so familiar?
Yes. No, we shouldn't be going this way.
Today's science suggests there's a biological reason why we fight over directions. Our brains are different. Most men navigate through a vague sense of north and south and distance traveled. Women usually rely on landmarks. We know about these differences thanks to studies like the one done at the University of Rochester, repeated here for our camera. Students are blindfolded and then walk through the maze of tunnels that run underneath the campus. The experimenter stays behind them and guides them with a tap on the shoulder so they don't run into anybody. When the women are asked where a college building is...
Can you tell me where Wilson Commons is?
They're not so sure.
That way?
Men, however, retained a sense of what direction they'd moved.
Go through the next doors, take a left, then a right, then a left.
Women, on the other hand, have a better memory for detail. Check out this test.
Have a chair here.
At York University in Toronto, students are asked to wait in a cluttered room while an experimenter gets something ready. Actually, though the student doesn't know it, this is the experiment. How much of the room will she remember? After 2 minutes, the experimenter moves her to another room and asks her.
Tell me every object in that room that you can remember.
Women typically give answers like this.
On the right-hand side of the desk right here was a briefcase with your initials at the top. Then there was a toque with mitts and a IM40 button on it. In the middle, there was envelopes, York University envelopes. There was a thing of Clearasil, a Bazooka Joe comic.
We could let her go on much longer.
A thing of perfume. There were scissors and a stapler here.
She remembered just about everything in the room.
There's those 2-pound puppy dogs.
Many of the women did. I find this amazing, but, of course, I'm a man, and we men don't do very well on this test.
I remember pound puppies. It was like right here. I don't have a very good memory.
Men and women consistently perform differently. Why would sex make a difference? Well, at conception, we begin life as the same clump of cells, except for the Y chromosome in the male. Certain hormones must be added for that clump of cells to turn out male. Scientists now say that those same hormones make men's brains different. That could explain why our behavior is different. Research on animals showed this years ago. At UCLA, Dr. Roger Gorski found that when female rats, like the white one here, were given the male hormone testosterone, they acted like male rats. They mounted other rats, trying to mate. At the University of Wisconsin, researchers injected testosterone into female monkeys while they were still in the womb. Now, monkeys engage in very sex stereotype behavior. The males are much more aggressive. They fight, play rough, just like little boys, while the females do all the grooming and nurturing of the children. But when the females that were injected with the testosterone grew up, they didn't groom or nurture the kids. They fought. They behaved just like the males. Now, these monkeys aren't watching sexist TV or going to toy stores. Their sexist behavior is innate. Of course, animals aren't people, and what's true for them may not be true for us. How could we find out if hormones have the same effect on people? It would be unethical to run experiments. But sometimes experiments just happen, naturally. In about 1 out of every 10,000 pregnancies, a genetic defect causes female babies to be accidentally exposed to a bath of the male hormone androgen. They're called CAH girls, short for congenital adrenal hyperplasia. The children are born female. Michelle Spacek, for example. Today, she's happily married and a mother. But all her life, she says she felt different from the other girls.
When I was young, I was a tomboy, I think. I didn't play with dolls. What I see girls doing now, that wasn't me.
If this is a sexist world, then these CAH girls get all the sexist messages other girls get. Yet they don't act like the other girls. There's something in them that's innately male.
I like to split wood. I've target practiced with my husband's guns. I've always been interested in cars.
Girls with CAH are female.
Dr. Sherry Berenbaum has studied hundreds of CAH girls, giving them toy preference tests, like the one we showed you earlier with non-CAH kids.
And we compared the CAH girls to their sisters. And we found that the CAH girls played much more with the boys' toys than their sisters. And it showed that hormones affect sex differences in behavior, not just in rats, not just in monkeys, but in people also.
Another thing that suggests men and women are born with built-in differences is that many of them show up so early in life, before the culture could have much effect.
When you talk about sex differences...
Child psychologist Michael Lewis finds differences in 1-year-olds when he runs a test separating a child from its mother. Most boys try to knock the barrier down. Most girls just stand there and cry for help. June Reinisch studied data on thousands of baby girls and boys and concluded there were inborn differences.
Girls sat up without support earlier than boys did. Boys crawled independently away from their caretaker earlier than girls.
One could still argue, of course, that these sex differences happen because of some very early form of sexist parenting. But then how do you explain behavior differences in newborns?
So when they look at babies in the first 72 hours of life, they find that males and females are not identical in the way they behave. Males startle more than females. If you give a little puff of air on their abdomen, they startle much bigger and much more likely to startle than females. And females rhythmically mouth. They suck on their tongues, they move their lips and so forth more than males do.
So could it be that when we treat kids differently, cuddle the girls, toss the boys into the air, that we're not just being sexist? Maybe we're responding to inborn cues from the kids. Of course, if boys and girls were different because of biology, wouldn't the differences show up in research on the brain? Well, recently researchers have found differences in men's and women's brains. This is frozen brain tissue that Dr. Laura Allen's been studying at UCLA.
As I began to look at the human brain more and more, I kept finding differences. And about 7 or 8 out of 10 structures that we actually measured turned out to be different between men and women.
These differences, says Dr. Allen, are most likely due to sex hormones we're exposed to in the womb.
Testosterone kind of rides a roller coaster until birth. We know the first rise of testosterone causes the development of the male sex organs. We don't know what the second rise of testosterone does. I suspect it causes our brains to be different.
Just want you to keep your eyes closed.
And with the help of this scanner, which records brain activity, scientists now also know that men and women use different parts of their brains when thinking about the same things.
You plug the numbers in for the variables?
All these differences could explain why women have better verbal skills, while some studies show men excel at math.
-2.
Evolution suggests theories as to why our brains are different. For 4 million years, men and women did very different things, says anthropologist Helen Fisher.
Women did all the gathering, and so they were collecting tiny seeds and tiny berries.
This may explain why today women have better fine motor skills. And why boys do so well in video games. Evolution led males to excel at mentally seeing things in 3 dimensions.
We see a great many more men who are architects, who are engineers, who are chess players. And more than likely, men choose those because they are, on average, more skilled at all kinds of spatial tasks. Men are better at throwing balls, throwing sticks, throwing stones. All of these spatial, quantitative, visual skills probably come from millions of years on the grasslands of Africa when men set out every morning to track and to surround and to fell their prey and then to sort of pick their way back home. Those that didn't do that died out.
Those who did survived to become our ancestors. Evolution also suggests that women really may be better parents, better nurturers. Certainly, if you look at animals, you see, it's almost always the female who does all the nurturing of the young. Experts say it may be that human females are better equipped for that task, too.
Taking care of young babies is something that maybe women are biologically somewhat more designed for, in some small ways. Their sensitivity to small changes and stimuli.
Women, she says, have better proximal senses, like sensitivity to sound. A drip that drives a woman crazy is often hardly noticeable to a man. Reinisch says this sensitivity may explain why women are better at understanding a baby's needs and good at reading people's emotions.
Just by a slight change in body posture or tone of voice, a woman will know that somebody is uncomfortable or they're angry. This probably comes from millions of years of looking at their small baby that didn't tell them what they wanted, and by visually just picking up all these nonverbal cues, establishing what the baby needed.
All this science suggests that men and women are just innately different, that it's not just our sexist culture at work, it's biology. Gloria Steinem doesn't believe it. In fact, she says this research shouldn't even be done.
It's really the remnant of anti-American crazy thinking to do this kind of research. It's what's keeping us down, not what's helping us.
And feminist lawyer Gloria Allred says we shouldn't even be doing this program about it.
We take attacks from the media on our skills and our abilities and our talents and our dreams very seriously. This is not just entertainment. This is harmful and damaging to our daughters' lives and to our mothers' lives. And I'm very angry about it.
Attitudes like that led colleagues to advise Dr. Allen, don't do this kind of research.
I was told that just really wasn't a good idea because it was politically provocative.
Other scientists have given up the research. One was refused a grant and told, this work ought not to be done. But shouldn't we always try to learn about human nature? Those who do the research say it's important.
We must study things that are not necessarily fashionable and try to educate people so that they don't misuse the information.
Misuse the information. That could happen. But right now, maybe it's a lack of information that's led us in some wrong directions. Today, there are elaborate and expensive government policies based on the fiction that men and women are interchangeable, that we bring the exact same skills and aptitudes to the table. What happens when you try to force society to organize itself around a fiction? We'll look at that when we return.
The great haircut debate. Her styling and his. Why does she pay more? A gender gap that women are fighting. Should there be a law? More about men, women, and the sex difference coming. This ABC News special continues with John Stossel.
I can understand why some feminist leaders just don't want research about gender differences talked about. Not long ago, similar research was used to keep women out of colleges and to keep women out of all kinds of important jobs, defending the country, for example.
Yes, during World War II, the government did relax its rules to allow thousands of women into the military. But this documentary shows the condescension they faced.
They did a tremendous job. They also made quite an improvement in our parades.
Women underwent regular training, but in skirts, and they were rarely allowed to even try out for important combat jobs.
Get out of here, go blue, go blue.
Today, women train pretty much like the men, and they can participate in most, but not all, combat jobs.
Is that understood?
Sergeant, yes, Sergeant!
That's not enough, says Gloria Steinem, because women are just as capable of combat as men.
Women are in combat positions every day in the street. I think what they don't want us to do is to learn how to use guns. I think that, suppose every underpaid waitress and battered wife had 2 years of military training. It'd be very interesting.
But many people argue that women are just not strong enough and violent enough for combat. The Presidential Commission debated the issue. One of the majority who concluded that women were not qualified was Kate O'Byrne of the Heritage Foundation.
How can you say they're not qualified? Modern warfare today is pulling a trigger, pressing a button on a computer. Women can do that as well or better than men.
The real physical demands of combat troops and units remain the same as they have been since warfare began. It's a very heavy business. Victory goes to the strongest and the swiftest.
And women are not fast and strong?
There's not one world-class sport where the best female athletes compete with the best male athletes.
Tests do show that on average, men have twice as much upper body strength as women. So to allow the services to admit more women, the military relaxed the strength tests required. For example, men must now do 42 push-ups, women just 18. Gender norming, they call it.
Yes, you can find some examples where strength and speed are important, but they are clearly a minority.
Not within the military, it's not a minority. I mean, it's the whole reason for existence. The military isn't a unique institution. They're not making widgets. When women really can't quite carry that 85-pound pack all the way back on the forced march, the guys pitch in and help.
The women add things that the women do well. They work together.
It's a problem if one guy's got to now carry 2 packs.
I'm not hearing a lot of these complaints from officers now. The military seems ready to try.
The gender police are patrolling the corridors of the Pentagon. If you express your opinion, you're a hop, skip, and a jump from a sexual harasser. You're putting women down. You're opposed to women's rights.
Lay the weapon down! Lay the weapon down!
This is such a bizarre social experiment. Lives are so at risk. You don't get extra points in the battle for having fielded the fairest army. No, it's kill or be killed.
The killing business is for men.
Combat is a manly pursuit, correct.
Then what is firefighting? Is this a manly pursuit too? For years, firemen said it was, and until 20 years ago, they did not even allow women the chance to compete for these jobs. The fact that today many strong women fight fires and do well shows how unfair it was to have a blanket policy that excluded all women. But does equal opportunity mean we must also force departments to hire a certain number of women? Firefighters need to be strong. On the strength tests given applicants, women just don't do as well as men. That doesn't matter, said a judge in San Francisco. The department must do what the bureaucrats call a reach down. Instead of simply hiring applicants who do best on the qualification test, you reach down to women who score lower.
People's attitudes have got to change about who a firefighter is. That, who is it? Who was that guy that in Towering Inferno? That Steve McQueen, gorgeous man, all right, but white, right? That Steve McQueen with his blue eyes is the only person who can haul you out of a building. It's not true. I some training and some time and put aside my law books, could probably learn to haul you out of a building. And if I thought you were going to die, if I didn't, I think I'd do pretty well. The point is, people have to be given a chance.
Well, men and women were given a chance to pass the fire department's tests, but women didn't do very well. The Los Angeles Fire Department secretly made this tape of women applicants struggling in training. The department wants firefighters to be able to climb over a wall. This requires upper body strength many women just don't have. Likewise, firefighters need to be able to use an axe to chop through a door. They train on logs. The men can split them, but the women often cannot. Some of the women who can don't want to work with these women.
The equipment required to do our job is heavy. The average woman does not have the strength to do this job.
Veteran firefighter Julie Wolf testified in favor of strict strength tests. The department says it made the tape to protect itself from lawsuits. And it's reasonable to expect such suits. Most every big city has been hit with discrimination suits. It's just the kind of case that feminist lawyer Gloria Allred likes to bring.
This tape was done to ward off people like you, who are going to bankrupt the county with lawsuits claiming that women...
Well, if there's discrimination against women, then they have options. I say doing nothing is no longer acceptable, that we should fight back. And I think that the women who do so deserve a medal rather than criticism.
Some fire departments settled the lawsuits by making admission requirements easier. For example, getting rid of the mile-and-a-half run or easing some of the strength tests.
How is America better off if the real physical demands of a job have to be watered down to accommodate women? If I, as an all-suffering taxpayer, have to be evacuated from a building, I used to be carried by a male firefighter. I am now dragged by my ankles as my head hits every single stair going down 3 stories. I preferred being carried. I assume most taxpayers preferred being carried.
It's better to drag them out because there's less smoke down there. I mean, we're probably killing people by carrying them out at that height, you know. So, I mean, we need to look sensibly here at these jobs and what they really require, and not just some idea of what macho is.
The men in the fire department say the women aren't strong enough. They've had to change the test.
Well, that's all right. Institutions have to adjust. If there are still physical problems which prevent certain activities, those activities should be assisted so that in a way, with technology, so that it's possible.
They should give them an electric axe.
Whatever is required.
Is that what equal opportunity means? And if it is that good policy? And who pays for it? Well, you know the answer to that. You do.
Been to Sears lately? If you buy something here, you should know that some of your dollar goes to pay for years of litigation between Sears and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The EEOC sued Sears, saying the fact that so many more men than women held big-ticket commission sales jobs, selling lawnmowers and appliances, for example, was proof that Sears discriminated.
So this is a good machine. It's only $288.
Sears said, we didn't discriminate. We asked women to do those jobs. It's just that few women want to sell things like lawnmowers.
You're welcome.
After the EEOC was unable to produce any women who said they'd been discriminated against, Sears won the suit. The $20 million the litigation cost will be passed on to us customers.
Totals $160.56.
Legal fees will also be passed on to you if you or your kids take an SAT test. Boys do better on these tests, especially in math. So lawyers from the ACLU say there have to be changes. The test is biased against girls, and that denies girls their fair share of national merit scholarships.
So what should they do to the test?
It's up to the Office for Civil Rights to decide exactly how the scholarship should be distributed, what the fairest way will be.
Not all girls are happy about the suit. Jennifer Horn won a merit scholarship last year. She says they shouldn't change the test.
I don't think it would do anything positive for girls. Maybe the scores would be better, but then boys will be able to turn around and say, well, the reason girls are doing better is because we just changed the test for them.
Gloria Allred says we need more equality lawsuits.
We should have more lawsuits?
Yes, more lawsuits, until the day when we enjoy equal rights with men.
She and others sued clothing stores that charge men less for alterations, and dry cleaners. Some charge more to clean women's blouses.
Women's shirts, 50 cents or more.
Frightened dry cleaners quickly changed their policy, though privately they argue they should charge women more, because women's clothes take more time. And women are more demanding, they say. This is consistent with the scientific research that shows women have better proximal senses, like a more acute sense of touch and better close-up vision.
Women see the spot. Men don't even know there's a spot.
Well, it may be, because I think I can smell sexism more than you can.
Oh, yes, and more lawyers smell sexism all the time. If you cut hair and charge women more than men, watch out.
Women in the district have been victims of illegal price differentials.
These law students recently filed human rights complaints against salons that charge more for women's haircuts. It's a good class project, says their professor, John Banzaf.
Now the salons hire a lawyer?
The salons could hire lawyers and either together or separately try to fight us in a hearing, but our law in the district is so clear. It says you cannot justify a different price for men and women, even if you can show that it costs you more.
Even if it is true that it takes longer to cut women's hair, it's still illegal?
It's pretty much as plain and simple. You cannot charge more for the same service.
No exceptions?
No, not unless you run out of business.
But then the only way to prove it would be to go out of business.
That's what the statute says.
I guess it's just too bad for the salons. They could fight back, but if your profit's a few dollars per haircut, who can afford thousands of dollars to pay a lawyer?
You're such a bully. Why must all salons charge what you say they should charge?
Let me turn the question around. Why can't a nightclub charge blacks twice as much as whites?
But there are real differences between men and women that there aren't between whites and blacks.
Hairstylists say it simply takes longer to do most women's hair.
It takes longer, and women are more hysteria about their hair. It's as simple as that.
The answer is our legislature passed the statute, our agency enforces it, we're simply enforcing the law.
It seems everyone's enforcing equality these days.
I felt sad, and the teacher said...
In East Windsor, New Jersey, the principal of this school wouldn't allow this little boy to pass out birthday invitations in school because he didn't invite the girls.
I went in the coat closet, and I was crying a little bit. And then I felt really bad.
All these rules protecting women's rights have brought us more groups demanding men's rights.
Men are definitely being screwed, and
many men were angry about the women's movement anyway.
Don't we deserve to be pushed back a bit?
See, that's one of the real problems.
Haven't we acted like pigs for thousands of years?
I don't think so. Men have been wimpified and beaten over the head so much, we're afraid to act like our full masculine self.
There's irony here. These men's rights advocates are furious that in child custody cases, judges favor the mothers. Fathers get custody only 10% of the time. So here, it's convenient for the men's rights advocates to agree with Gloria Steinem. We're all equal.
Aren't women in general better nurturers?
No. Next question.
Aren't women better mothers, better nurturers?
Fathers and mothers are both equal good parents.
Evolution shows that women have done most of the mothering.
That is a myth. That is a myth.
But evolution suggests it's not a myth, that women may be more intense, loving parents. They're certainly less likely to abandon the kids. It's we men who most often do that. So maybe it's right that the judges favor mothers. And considering men's strength and spatial skills, maybe it's right that most architects and football players are men. And because of women's superior verbal and people skills, maybe it's all right that 60% of the pediatricians are women. And most of the real estate agents and teachers are women.
Very good. 1/2.
Maybe women are biologically different. Your brains work differently. Maybe you're not as good in math. Why sue me because of that? We're all paying for your lawsuits.
Women have a right to be angry. They have a right to go to court, to vindicate their rights. They have a right to get elected to public office, to make the public policy so that they will not be deprived of their rights.
And if they don't get elected, you're going to file a suit demanding they be elected?
I think we should do each and every act which is necessary and appropriate to protect our rights and the rights of our daughters.
Whew. Well, I want to protect my daughter's rights too, but suing every time things aren't neatly equal, is that the way to go? We're going to coerce people to behave the way the social engineers say we should? Is that what America should be about? Perhaps instead of arguing about our differences, we should honor them, reorder society based on our very different strengths. We'll consider that next. and being different in so many ways, then what do we do with that information? Again, I can see why some feminists don't even want the science discussed. Over the years, the difference has been used to hold women back, to say, yeah, women don't belong in business, politics, that's men's work. But why must difference mean anyone should be excluded, their choices limited?
Instead, the researchers point out that knowledge about differences can give people more choice.
On the other hand, there are so many good social implications. We may alter our educational strategies to be more understanding of the way boys and girls are.
Take math, for example.
Okay, which numbers, girls?
This high school in Presque Isle, Maine is one of a number that now runs girls-only math classes. And the girls work in groups because research suggests girls learn better this way, collaborating, talking problems out.
Add the 2 on, 4x plus 6. I get it. You get it? Yep. Good.
Some girls at this school who once said they hated math are now taking advanced math classes.
Perhaps we can provide female ways of teaching math so that we get more great mathematicians. Female ways of teaching engineering so we get more female engineers, and physics and so forth. So it provides a way of giving people more opportunity.
Opportunity, equal opportunity. Isn't that what America should be about? And recognizing differences needn't limit anyone's opportunity.
In fact, when you look at the science, you find all kinds of traditionally men's professions that might be better suited to women.
And America's first woman astronaut.
Certainly for astronauts, women would be better. They need less food, they need less oxygen per pound than men do. We're more efficient.
And women are better at language.
With hope. Good morning.
I think that the next century is going to be filled with jobs for women. We're going to see more women as lawyers. Women have a natural ability at arbitration. If you take a look at chimpanzees, it's the females that are constantly keeping the peace. And I think that we'll see many more women as politicians.
Given that we men haven't done a great job keeping the peace, maybe more women should be our political leaders.
The world is in chaos. The world is, at the moment, is going through a global nervous breakdown, truthfully.
Because of us men?
Well, you are the guys doing it. We're not in charge.
Why are so many of us men in charge? Is there a biological reason? You no longer need physical strength to lead the tribe. But men's aggressiveness leads us to do other things to become leaders. If getting elected means leaving your kids to kiss other people's kids, maybe testosterone leads men to kiss more babies, or whatever, to shake more hands with less sense of embarrassment than women. Of course, if testosterone helps us get the job, it doesn't necessarily help us do it well. Perhaps women, with their superior skills at reading character, would do it better. Acknowledging differences doesn't mean the women's movement was wrong or should be reversed. Why would we want to go back to the days when women were excluded from making all the contributions they make now? When few men got involved with nurturing their children? Aren't we all better off when everyone is allowed the freedom to choose what we want to be? Thank God for the women's movement. Finally, a point about people. We keep saying men are more this, women that, but none of this means much for any individual. People vary so much that individual differences are often much greater than the differences between the sexes. Remember that experiment that showed the little girls cry out when separated from their mothers, while boys bash into the barrier or try to go around it? Well, the day we taped, it happened that we saw only the exceptions. Of the 5 children we taped, every child that just stood there and cried was a boy. It was the girls who fought to get through.
There's always the girl who loves the gun or the truck, and there's always the boy who loves the tea set. And so we can't make predictions for individuals, but it sure looks like there are clear differences.
So why not celebrate them rather than deny that they exist? Why not let people's natural inclinations take them wherever their potential allows? Furthermore, if we deny what science knows about human nature, how can we create sensible social policies? Isn't it better to act on the basis of what is true rather than maintaining it has no right to be true? We'll be back in a moment. Hope you enjoyed it. Researchers say the more we learn about these things, the more it'll help men and women communicate. Might also help us parents feel less guilty if our daughters act like daughters and our sons like sons. In any case, the main point is that men and women may be created equal and deserve equal opportunity, but we're not the same. Next week, Day One returns to this time slot, and be sure to watch 2020 tomorrow night. I'm John Stossel. For all of us at ABC News, good night.
You're watching Channel.
The litany.
Because I only want you to be a success.
People are not trying to find out, why am I here and what am I going to do with my life? They're trying to find a sense of fulfillment. I want to be happy with what does that mean?
Trying to answer that question in America today is a nearly $2 billion a year business. We're gobbling up 2,000 new books published each year. Video sales top $500 million a year.
And all tapes come with a full money-back guarantee.
Motivational speakers fill stadiums, and now...
The People's Network, dedicated to supporting the never-ending search for the best within you.
A satellite channel dedicated to spewing advice. Last year, we spent 25% more on our quest to get better, in other words, happier lives than we did the year before.
Thanks, Jimmy.
And if Jan Miller has her say, those figures will keep exploding while we keep exploring.
Different things make different people happy. Some people, money makes them happy. Some people, being thin makes them happy. Some having a great relationship.
And there isn't an area in our lives she and her clients haven't targeted. Is it your family you want to work on? Ask Miller's clients, the heirs.
Do you really think you can make families happier?
Absolutely.
We really have seen it work.
A better body? Susan Powder has the power.
Will it change your life because you wake up every day with a foundation of wellness? Guaranteed.
Miller has an expert on everything, and even people at the top are listening. Just ask business guru Stephen Covey.
Were you surprised when the President of the United States called you and said, I've read your book 2 or 3 times, I want you to come talk to me about it?
I was. I had no idea such a thing would happen.
Why are we buying all this stuff? Because life today is just too fast, too overwhelming, and we've abandoned many of the institutions we traditionally turn to for help. Our churches, governments, schools, even our families.
There's so much that people are unsure of around them, that if they can tap into something internally, they can feel better about it. I mean, it's adult education.
Constant and never-ending improvement, a philosophy we call CNI, and you got to CNI your life constantly.
That's CNEI, a 90s version of Ben Franklin's advice, God helps them who help themselves.
What other levels can you take this to now, in 1995, that you couldn't a couple years ago? Audio. Video market's huge. Corporate training, satellite. I mean, it's so expansive. Tomorrow's next, I guess.
But for now, Jan Miller's focused on conquering Earth. Today, she's selling her newest clients to Simon & Schuster. Thanks to her track record, when Miller talks, the industry listens.
He changes people's lives because...
Craig McFarlane is a blind motivational speaker, and Will Miller believes tap a new market.
Do you envision a Braille edition of the book?
You bet they do.
This is where you're going to pitch Les Brown. We're going to talk about Les Brown.
Les Brown is an author and motivational speaker whose upbeat message Miller is counting on to mine the minorities market.
I think what we're doing is selling people on themselves, as opposed to selling them Nike or Pepsi-Cola or cars or clothes. We're selling them on their unlimited potential.
But is this just a bunch of self-obsessed yuppies walking around going, who am I, why am I here? I mean, people aren't asking that in, Bosnia.
I think that we're very fortunate to be in a country where you have the beginning of the self-help movement. Many other countries, it's not possible to have your dreams and make them become reality.
There's always this hope that you're talking about, that yes, I'm pretty happy, but maybe I could be happier. Yeah.
Ed Diener of the University of Illinois and David Myers of Michigan's Hope College are the two leading social psychologists studying happiness. They say that while Americans have gotten richer over the past 30 years, in fact doubled our national income, we've also become unhappier. Today, only 29% of us say we're really happy.
down 6% from 1957.
Unhappiness, frustration, dissatisfaction is defined by the gap between what we expect and what we think we deserve and what we've got. And so if somebody can increase our sense of dissatisfaction by raising our expectations, they may sell us their self-help tapes, but in the process, at least in the short term, they may have made us more miserable by increasing that gap. And so one way we can influence our own happiness is by the comparisons we make.
Something to think about next time you obsess about Claudia Schiffer's lips or those incredible legs on Naomi Campbell. Studies prove we feel worse about ourselves after seeing perfect bodies. And money?
Wealth is rather like health. Its utter absence breeds misery, but having it in more and more abundance doesn't make you happier and happier.
A point not lost on yet another Miller client, economist Paul Pilzer.
God wants you to be rich. Now, please.
Pilzer's latest book is geared to what he sees as the spiritual dilemma brought on by the unprecedented financial success of baby boomers.
It's more than any of our parents or grandparents ever dreamed we would have.
And we're still saying, this is it?
Because it's all on a relative basis. The human condition was set up, it's a common theme through literature and science fiction, that we're here to strive. We don't know how to deal without striving. And what we're about to embark on, what Jan Miller's authors, and Jan herself is at the forefront of, is what do we do with all this economic prosperity? What's next?
That's the question the tall man standing next to Ivana and Donald Trump was forced to ask himself.
I woke up one morning in 1987, and I was 35 years old, and all of a sudden it dawned on me, I've got it. I've got all the pieces in a row. And it still doesn't feel like what I expected it to.
Like journalist Tony Schwartz, millions of Americans from all walks of life are facing the same dilemma.
You want something more out of life.
There is a hole. There is this sense of loss.
Is this what it's supposed to be about?
And in just a moment, we'll see how some of them are rising to the challenge.
I've read that you recently said that you want to simplify your life, get rid of houses, get rid of possessions. Not true?
I babble on all.
Are you talking?
You're making all this
Well, I kind of, you know, I don't lie. I'm a drama queen. What do you want from me?
And I think he's going to make a lot of money now for the first time, I hope. Right, Tony? We're teaching Tony how to make some money.
Real money for the first time in journalist Tony Schwartz's life. He had just finished co-writing Donald Trump's best-selling autobiography. He had a beautiful house, a wonderful wife, and 2 healthy daughters. It should have been everything, yet something was still missing.
And in a way, that was the scariest of all, because until the point where you say to yourself, well, I don't have it yet. I know what it is, but I don't have it yet. You continue to think, reach, reach, reach. Well, I got it, and it wasn't enough.
So the writer went on a journey of self-discovery, testing over 50 different approaches to life along the way, searching for something to bring his life joy.
I tried pretty much everything, from the sublime to the ridiculous. I met with people who did past lives therapy and people who talked about near-death experiences. I did all kinds of body work.
2 for my children.
Oh, how terrific.
His quest is chronicled in his latest book, What Really Matters, Searching for Wisdom in America.
Thank you.
Did you think when you set out on your search that it would be a 5-year odyssey?
I sensed that this wasn't going to be easy. On the other hand, I did believe that I would find the answer, that there is a holy grail, that if I go long enough and I search hard enough, I'm going to find the thing that it's all about.
What did Tony Schwartz discover? He'll answer that. But first, 3 ordinary Americans on their own odysseys, each searching for happiness in a different realm. One through the body, one through the mind, and one through the spirit.
Abba, Father, we approach thee in our Savior's precious name.
For the hundreds of thousands of men who call themselves Promise Keepers and are filling stadiums around the country, happiness is about having a deeper spiritual relationship with God.
By the sacrifice of Jesus, Abba, Father, we proclaim.
I'm looking for maybe some keys to happiness, you know, find out what makes other people happy, maybe how they lead their lives, you know, how maybe I could incorporate it into my life.
24-year-old Jimmy Keys is a dump truck driver in Branson, Missouri. His life is in turmoil. After years of arguments about Jimmy's drinking and irresponsible behavior, his wife Kelly divorced him 2 years ago. But today, they are struggling to try to work things out for the sake of their 5-year-old daughter, Brittany.
How much of this has to do with the kind of man you want to be for your daughter?
I didn't really have much of a father, so it's real important to me that I be a good father for her.
Just before Jimmy was born, his father committed suicide.
I might be a mediocre dad, but not the best I could be. And mediocre's not good enough for my little girl.
So Jimmy came to Denver to find some spiritual and practical guidance from the Promise Keepers, an organization led by former University of Colorado football coach Bill McCartney.
Men have abdicated their role to be the spiritual leaders in the home. And so what we're calling men to do is lay down their lives for their wives. There isn't any lady that's threatened by that.
Maybe, maybe not. But a lot of men are responding to this Promise Keeper promise. Make God the center of your life and take back your responsibility as the head of the home, and your family will find true happiness.
Which in turn will, if they're happy, they're going to want to make me happy.
I don't believe I've ever seen so many people one place in my life.
After 2 days of praying with other men, sitting through rain and shine, and being motivated by inspirational speakers on subjects from money to marriage, Jimmy returned home, he says, with a renewed commitment to be a better husband and father.
I think that's kind of a miracle that has kind of happened to him since he's been to the Promise Keepers.
Ready?
Yeah. She has a daddy now that participates in her activities and, actually makes eye contact with her and talks to her.
Yeah, that's better.
Oh,
victory in Jesus.
Once you become saved, Spirit just fills you. And it brings a calmness over you, and a peace, and a happiness that you never felt before. It's like my own personal dad there that I can always talk to, and it'll calm me.
Jimmy and Kelly are now thinking of getting remarried. While marriage itself certainly doesn't guarantee happiness, research shows that happy people tend to have strong, intimate relationships and a sense of spirituality.
I've tried LifeSpring and EST and Silver Mind Control.
Diana Boylston, a special ed teacher and part-time actress, has tried just about everything and still is not happy. So Diana and her firefighter husband Wesley have come here to Miraval, a 5-day pilot program outside Tucson, Arizona, designed to give participants a new perspective on life.
So you go up here and you cut over.
Right.
Over the next few days, Diana will face a series of challenges that may look physical, but are designed to change her mental outlook.
What's the worst thing that could happen?
I could not get up to the top.
That, in a nutshell, is Diana's biggest problem. She doesn't believe in herself.
This lack of self-acceptance causes me great pain, and I sabotage myself in many different ways. I sabotage myself through my weight. It affects me in my relationships.
Diana says those problems are rooted in childhood. Though she was homecoming queen, honor student, cheerleader, her life at home was hell. Both her parents were using drugs and died before she was 20.
There is that part of me that still feels the sadness I learned to feel from them, that still feels ashamed, that still feels like, well, gee, do you ever really get to catch up in life?
The folks at Miraval believe she can catch up, if only they can get her to see herself as a winner. For 5 days, Diana does things she never thought she could. She juggles, she walks the tightrope, and she slows down. The Miraval philosophy is that it's hard to be happy when you're racing through life.
Exhale and sink and bend your knees and spine.
But none of that will really help Diana unless she learns to overcome her expectations of failure. Her instructors for this bit of Zen on the Range, Wyatt Webb and Vern.
That's Vern.
Her job is to lift Vern's hoof to clean it. Sounds simple enough, unless you expect to fail.
He's not even like slightly moving.
So how do you feel about that?
I expected it.
You expected what?
To be rejected.
So Webb encourages Diana to try again, and again, and again.
Good job. Slow down. Slow down. Good. Just relax. Move slower. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is to step in here, take care of yourself, get totally balanced, and this time, he's going to lift his leg with you. Not for you, not because of you, but with you.
A new attitude, a new balance, and 45 minutes later, a new result.
Good job. One of the most important things you can do is every time that you walk through a piece of this path that you've got toward the help that you're seeking and that you long for, is to do this. Diane, you did a good job here.
How you doing?
Touchy-feely? Well, for Diana, it worked. She says her 5 days at Miraval taught her a simple lesson. The tools to rise to any challenge lie within her. And that, she says, reminds her of another girl's quest for happiness in a place called Oz.
Dorothy taught us all a lot. It is in our own backyard. Our backyard is us. It's what we always have.
Learning that she has the power to succeed is a big first step towards happiness for Diana. Studies show people with positive self-images lead happier, more joyful lives.
This will work out. Come on. I think if as many people tried the physical pursuit of happiness as did the spirituals, we'd have a lot happier society.
And boy, is Jerry Howard's pursuit ever physical. A successful architect who lives in Newport Beach, California, Jerry realized that turning 50 made him miserable. So he decided not to age.
I've read almost every self-help book, and it never made me happy, like exercising, and this drug has made me happy.
Yes, he did say drug. A drug that helped take Jerry from this, a portly, middle-aged guy with a gut, to this.
3. Come on.
An iron-pumping powerhouse with a new lease on life. Jerry works out with a full-time trainer 6 days a week, eats a high-tech, low-fat diet, and since February of this year, his nightly routine has included injecting a syringe of HGH, short for human growth hormone. This controversial drug, more than anything, has made Jerry very happy.
The energy level just increased by 25–30% the first month. I mean, it was incredible. It was incredible. I mean, and you could feel it.
Jerry's wife, Debbie, says she saw it work much better than the Prozac he had been taking.
He was always tired because his business requires him to travel a lot. He would come home and he would want to just vegetate until he had to go on another trip, and now he's got a lot more energy.
HGH is a hormone naturally produced by the body to regulate growth. As we age, we make less. But in the last few years, doctors have begun experimenting with injections to combat aging, although it has not been specifically approved for this use by the Food and Drug Administration. But Dr. Carlos Ulis, who specializes in sports medicine, decided Jerry could use it.
One of the first things they noticed, some mental effect of being balanced, less irritable, more even-tempered, and ultimately generally happy with their lives with a better, more positive outlook. Put your hand down here, and I want to see how your skin texture is. That's great.
Jerry says his skin is tighter, his eyesight's better, and he feels at least 10 years younger. He is closely monitored by Dr. Ulis for any adverse side effects. But so far, so good. And as long as that's the case, says Jerry, he'll keep shelling out for HGH.
How much are you spending on this?
It's about $1,350 a month, and the blood tests have cost me $3,000 so far.
So you're going to end up spending, probably about 16, 17 grand a year.
Worth every penny. What price would you put on your happiness? 2% of your income? 10% of your income?
And his income is doing better than ever, Jerry says, thanks to that newfound energy. The plan before HGH was to retire.
You don't have anything else. Raised this another 50 millimeters.
Right. The new plan is to expand the company.
I've changed the way I lead my life also, and how I relate to people. I was a brutal business guy. I mean,
people in the
I would
office
cut
aren't
your
nearly
throat
as scared of him anymore.
In a minute. I mean, now I walk into places and people actually are, here comes Jerry, it's really nice.
What Jerry has discovered about happiness is something social psychologists call the feel-good, do-good phenomenon. It's a fact. Happy people, no matter how they get that way, are more likely to be loving, creative, and helpful towards others. The other lesson? Half the fun of happiness is getting there.
The value of making any kind of search is in the process, not in the end result.
And that, says Tony Schwartz, the author of What Really Matters, is what really matters.
So you tried TM, you've been Rolfed, you've gone in search of the thing, the Holy Grail, the answer to the emptiness. What is it?
I don't believe that there is an answer. What I came to believe was that the best of the people that I met and the best of the practices to which I was introduced became pieces of a larger puzzle, and that no practice by itself, no teacher by him or herself had the whole answer, not nearly.
But Tony Schwartz never met this man.
You think you can teach people happiness quickly, easily, and without pain?
Quickly, easily, and without pain.
When we come back, we'll visit this 85-acre New England compound to learn what former admin Barry Neal Kaufman sells as the best-kept secret on the planet.
Can you help anyone, everyone?
Anyone, everyone, any place, anytime.
Happiness quickly, easily, and without pain.
Quickly, easily, and without pain.
Can you help anyone, everyone?
Anyone, everyone, any place, anytime.
The Gospel according to Barry Neal Kaufman, founder, promoter, and brains behind the Option Institute, the only place on the planet, according to Kaufman, devoted exclusively to teaching happiness.
I'd like to be your happiness coach. I'd like to be your love coach, and I think that's what we do.
Your love coach. Oh, my God.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Wait.
And he's serious. Given the opportunity, 53-year-old Kaufman unabashedly believes that he can change the way you live by changing your beliefs.
We're the Disneyland of the mind.
How do you teach somebody to be happy?
Having people learn to challenge the beliefs that create their emotional states of mind and their behavioral responses, or actually teach them what we call shortcuts to happiness.
Give me a shortcut to happiness.
Oh, a shortcut to happiness is a very simple one, being present.
So you teach people in a couple words or less to be present in the here and now, to be grateful, to stop blaming.
Right. In this culture, in this society, we not only worship pain and distress and discomfort, but we actually inflate the past and get very preoccupied with it.
And people from around the world are coming to this 85-acre spread in western Massachusetts for a day, a week, even a month to buy what Kaufman is selling.
I feel what we're doing here is sharing what I would call the best-kept secret on the planet, literally, which is happiness is a choice.
But the choice is not cheap. For $7,200, Kaufman offers the ultimate happiness package, an 8-week program of serenity, vegetarian meals, and endless self-examination, all designed to discover a happier you.
I think that one happier person on the planet, I mean this in the most sincerest way, makes a difference. 2 happier people, more loving people, oh my God, oh wow.
And wow, you wouldn't believe what people are willing to do to get in.
So we decided, well, we'll sell Scott's business. I claimed bankruptcy.
I sold my house. I left my job.
When you turned to your husband and said, I'm going to go to the Option Institute for 8 weeks, I'm going to take this hard-earned money that I've saved.
My IRA.
Your IRA. Put it in here. What was his reaction?
He said, you better be different at the end of the 8 weeks. My name is Catherine.
In June, Catherine Tucker made a choice. In a last-ditch effort to avoid taking Prozac for depression, she signed up for the ultimate happiness package.
What was making you unhappy?
It was just kind of a low level, not fully enjoying my life, not fully enjoying my children or my husband or any aspect of my life. It was a struggle.
So she placed her hope in Barry Kaufman's hands.
What would you say was one of your deepest fears that you shared that was most healing for you?
That I was somehow responsible for my sister's death.
What are you doing about that now? Are you responsible?
No, I'm not responsible.
15 years ago, Catherine's sister Carol committed suicide. Catherine tried years of traditional therapy to cope with the trauma, but it never helped.
The very fact that she had chosen to die in that way made some kind of a statement about myself and about my family.
Could you bring Carol to your mind right now? Like literally invite her into your consciousness. Do you have her?
I do.
Okay. Could you actually walk around her? Like imagine her standing there and see if you could walk like completely around her. How are you doing with that?
It's the first time in 15 years I've been with her.
Okay, how does it feel?
It feels great.
Okay.
What happened for me yesterday was that in exploring some of my feelings and beliefs around that, I understood that I could honor my sister's memory much more through a sense of really feeling grateful for who she was than I ever could by feeling ashamed about her death.
And up until yesterday, you were ashamed of her death?
Absolutely.
I did a dialogue with her, literally in a period of 10 minutes, 11 minutes, 12 minutes, in which she got to see that she was taking responsibility for her sister's choices.
Who exactly is this guy with the quick fix philosophy working miracles in minutes? He is a successful advertising executive turned author. It was the publication and subsequent made-for-TV movie Sunrise, one of his 9 books, that brought him to national prominence. The story of his son Ron's surprising emergence from autism, for which Kaufman takes credit, has never been proven. But that hasn't stopped this Pied Piper of happiness from selling his programs.
People come to you and and you make them happy. You're like a guru.
I wouldn't want to see myself or any of our teachers here as gurus. I would want to see us as happiness coaches.
Many people, myself included, are skeptical. Like, make anyone happy with no pain, quickly?
He has the tools. If you want to pick them up and choose to make yourself happy, it's absolutely here.
For Catherine and many others we spoke to, Barry Kaufman
I'm Bears, by the way.
is nothing short of a lifesaver. But not everyone shares that view.
What does your mother think about you being here?
I think she has concerns about Barry Kaufman and his work, and at times I've jokingly said to people, I think she thinks it's a cult.
We would be, in some way, the exact opposite of that kind of environment, because what we're teaching people is think for yourself, look for your own answers, make your own decisions.
I thought, wow, maybe I can be one of these people who chooses happiness.
For almost 10 years, Ann Britton tried Kaufman's brand of happiness. Starting as a volunteer, she worked her way up to mentor, then sales, and ended up on the board of administrators. But happy?
I couldn't get it. I just couldn't get it. Finally, I remember, after being there for about 2 years, I just decided if you can't be happy, then don't think.
Britton stayed on for 8 more years and finally quit this January, claiming the Kaufmans forced her out, an allegation Kaufman denies. She later failed in a bid for unemployment compensation. Today, Britton wants to warn others about the Option Institute.
I was incredibly gullible. What I think now is I think it's a big con game, a big scam, a good one. I think it's definitely a religion, not a good religion.
Religion or big business? It's hard to know. According to the Secretary of State's office in Massachusetts, the Option Institute, by Kaufman's own definition, meets the criteria of a religious and educational organization and therefore qualifies for a tax-exempt nonprofit status.
It is charted as an educational organization or facility, as well as religious in the sense of teaching about love and acceptance.
This has definitely been a worthwhile pursuit for you, clearly, financially speaking.
Totally. I mean, it's a way that we could take care of ourselves as well. And I'm really grateful for that.
Do you take a hit? I mean, you're clearly doing well. You've said you're doing well, and you're doing well off people's desperation.
I don't really feel we're doing anything off somebody's desperation. I think that we're hopefully contributing to making people's lives much better on the planet.
Does it make you feel incredibly responsible for their happiness? They've sold their house. They've quit their jobs.
I know,
They've come here thinking you can change their lives. You're responsible.
We can't do it for them, but we're going to be the best happiness coaches, the best love coaches that we can be.
Happiness is a choice that seems to be working for Catherine so far. Her husband says she's happier than he's ever seen her. She believes the process has helped her make peace with the death of her sister, whose grave she recently visited for the first time ever. The next step, she says, is to share her newfound happiness with her mother.
I'm not sure that that means that she'll think Option is just terrific. Yeah. But she will be very pleased that, that I feel so good. Right.
Catherine feels so good about the Institute, she just quit a job to become a volunteer. Her hope is to become a mentor and someday help others make happiness a choice.
Well, how about happiness is just hanging out with this gorgeous woman.
I think it's just a level of contentment that even though the day doesn't go so well, that you still wake up in the morning ready to go.
Family and friends really make you happy. No matter what happens in the world, those people really make you happy.
Fame, success, wealth, good looks. The myth is if we had them, we'd be happy. But ask those who do, and they'll tell you it's the simpler things in life that bring joy.
Eating a bacon sandwich on a nice comfy couch with my shoes off.
Happiness is having a grandson.
Every once in a while, things just gel and you feel something, a real surge of happiness and joy. And, you know, I try to remember and appreciate those little moments.
So does actor Richard Gere.
Now, as a kid, you hit a home run. Everything is perfect in the universe. But somehow you relate the home run to the bat and the ball. And you start to worship the ball and the bat and not realize that they were just an access point to a moment of godliness. And it's the moment of godliness you want to go towards, not the bat.
For Gere, appreciating those moments of godliness is what the quest for happiness is all about. 20 years ago, he embraced Buddhism, the foundation, he says, for his balancing act between two worlds, highly materialistic Hollywood and India, where he now spends 3 months each year pursuing his inner self under the spiritual guidance of the Dalai Lama.
One of the striking things that His Holiness says over and over again is all living things have the same thing in common, is that they want to achieve happiness and avoid suffering. I tend to see the voyage as one of expansion. It's not like you arrive at happiness. You start yourself on a process of expanding your mind and your heart.
Well, what started you on this trek, this journey to try to achieve wisdom, to try to achieve compassion, to lead a more spiritual life? Was there something missing? Suffering?
Comes out of suffering. I mean, you look at your life and you say, I'm not happy. You know, even before I had the things, I had the toys, before I became successful as an actor and had the things supposedly that are going to make you happy, I still felt dissatisfied.
Did the toys, the things that all of us think are going to make us happy, did they make you happy? Did they
Well, they always do for a
a
little
bit?
Sure, it's like a good meal. You know, but then a couple hours later, you're hungry again. You know, there's nothing that definitively brings happiness in the physical realm.
Do you feel you've achieved happiness?
Oh, no, not at all. Whatever that I have done in the process of this work that has been about serving others, helping others, has brought me happiness. A little, a lot, whatever. Anything that has been about me, and me accumulating or establishing or protecting or whatever, has brought me suffering.
I've read that you recently said that you want to simplify your life, get rid of houses, get rid of possessions. Not true?
I babble on all kinds of bullshit.
You lie. You're making all this
Well,
up.
I kind of, you know, I don't lie. I'm a drama queen. What do you want from me?
You make this stuff up.
Yeah, no. I mean,
You think about it.
Look, I've recently had some hard times in my life emotionally, you know, so I'm not going into too much detail.
Good, that's all.
The poet Gary Schneider said this wonderful thing about possessions. He said, you shouldn't own anything you can't leave out in the rain. We don't need anything. Happiness is certainly not based on things.
There's a wisdom that's inside of us, and that's what we need to get in touch with.
Author and psychologist Thomas More touched a nerve with his bestseller, Care of the Soul. Now he's speaking out on one of the hottest issues in the 90s, simplicity. Simplicity, says this former seminarian, is the only way to find happiness in this hectic modern world.
The soul is empty because the soul needs to be nourished, fed, just as the body is. And so we need to know those things that nourish the soul. What are they? Family, closeness, celebration, some kind of spiritual life, values, beauty.
You talk about people engaging in the art of conversation, slowing down, enjoying the moment, reading plays. People would sit there and say, that's great, Thomas More, but I'm getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting home at 8 o'clock at night, I've got tuitions, mortgages, family responsibilities.
Well, that's the problem.
That's the reality.
That's the problem too, though. I mean, if you cannot find this thing that some people are calling happiness, what I call caring for one's soul or whatever it is we're looking for. You can't find it without getting out of this modern world. I don't think you can do it. I think a lot of caring for the soul means to create space, sell something, give away some stuff. That's not an easy thing to do, but it's possible, and there's a great deal of reward from it.
Say no.
Say no.
Tim and Chris Curtis would agree with that. This Seattle-Washington couple decided they wanted to simplify their lives in order to take back their lives.
So the American dream, yeah, it just keeps, it doesn't stop. And boy, that takes a lot of energy.
Yeah, and I think it may be true for many people that it's become a nightmare.
The American dream.
10 years ago, Chris and Tim were living the 80s version of what they thought was the dream. Tim was a high school teacher. Chris ran the 2 Haagen-Dazs stores they owned.
Success bought me a lot of nice things. It bought a big formal house, and it bought a BMW, and it bought some nice luxury vacations. It bought some nice things in my house.
A big, beautiful house with a big, not-so-beautiful mortgage.
And, it was a great house for entertaining, and you know, it's
And we had
nice
grand
big
plans
room.
of entertaining, but then we were so busy, we seldom got the opportunity.
We entertained much more in that.
They can laugh about it now, but back then their lack of time to enjoy life and each other caused serious distress. So Tim and Chris did a thing millions of us only dream of doing.
We were in a position to pull the plug.
Did you two sit down and say, we're pulling the plug on success, we're getting out of this, we're drowning?
It was gradual, and it didn't happen overnight. It wasn't like, oh, I see the light. But we did sit down and say, how can we cut our nut, our overhead down? How can we eliminate this house, this car, some of these extras that we didn't realize that we didn't value as much as we thought we had out of our lives. Having the extra time to be with our daughter was very important to us. So work and success and some of the drive that's necessary to make that happen took a backseat to just being parents.
The upshot of those decisions was to pare down and to trade down. The first thing to go was the BMW.
You don't have any air conditioning in here.
No, I don't.
Say, there's the thing.
In its stead, a 1965 Plymouth Valiant.
It's so hot in this simple car.
Gaining more time to enjoy life meant unloading the ice cream business.
That's nice.
It is a nice color.
But selling it meant giving up over half their income and living on Tim's teaching salary alone. They cut up their credit cards and carry no debt, except for the new house, which is 1/3 the money and 2/3 less work.
I don't have to pay somebody to pull the weeds because it becomes a thorough experience to pull the weeds out of your own lawn because it's only your lawn is this size.
Don't tell me you think about throw when you're out here pulling the weeds. This is getting too good, okay?
But life, say the Curtises, is good now that they have the time to live it.
Dinner for us is very important. We sit down and we eat it together and we talk about it.
They eat dinner with their 9-year-old daughter Natalie every night. And the rule during dinner? No phone calls, just conversation.
I want her to grow up and have that memory. So time together rather than we're going to have a vacation in Hawaii and we're all going to get together and have a good time when you can do it each day.
When school is in session, Chris walks Natalie to the local school. Tim picks her up. And every Saturday morning, Natalie rings the bell to open Seattle's Farmers Market, which her mother founded.
Are you planning on coming every week, do you think? The fact that, you know, we've been able to oversee a community project that sort of gives back, and it's been real successful and meant a lot to a neighborhood. I feel better about that project than probably anything I've done in my life because it came from the heart and it's worked for the community.
And simple living is not about taking it all away. It's about finding balance and choosing what you want and what's more important.
Janet Loers runs Simple Living Journal, a must-read for those in the voluntary simplicity movement, a quiet but quickly growing crowd of Americans.
To me, that's what it's about, is enjoying the experience of each thing that you're doing instead of having 20,000 things going on all at the same time and not enjoying any of them and being exhausted.
How does voluntary simplicity or simplicity affect one's happiness?
The way I see it is if you take away the layers that are on top of all of it, to look a certain way and to earn a lot of money and to get ahead wherever ahead is, you sort of relax, and then you have more time for other people and to care about your neighbors and to care about other people in the world and what's happening, and you have time for your friends and just to be, you know, to watch a spider spinning a web or something, or just to enjoy life.
What's the best piece of advice you could give to people who are feeling overwhelmed, unhappy, and empty, and want to change their lives?
Start simply to live simply. There's always an excuse for you can't do no matter what it is, and everybody, in accordance with their own lives, I think, can examine ways that we could make this picture simpler.
As simple as turning off the beeper, phone or fax, they say, or not aspiring to the next job up if that's going to rob you of the time to enjoy your life. That's why Tim says he wants to remain a teacher and not move up the ranks.
I'm able to get out earlier in the day, so I get to pick up my daughter from school, and I value that a great deal. And I realize that holding that little warm hand in mine going back from school is not going to last that long.
I have more time to sort of read with her, have long talks with her, playing piano duets with her. I think there is value in having more time to spend with her. I think there's a lot more value in it.
What would you say to people who say you guys dropped out?
I would say, what?
No,
I'd say I dropped into a life.
This is one American family that is happy, content, at peace. Over a country of self-indulgent baby boomers who had it too good. Sure, there was a little of that, but what I discovered overall was that for the most part, the pursuit of happiness leads to greater generosity, awareness, and acceptance of ourselves, of who we are, and equally important, who we are not. In a world of intolerance, alienation, and chaos, that's not such a bad thing. The trick to getting happy is to hear yourself above the din of those who profess to have the answers for you. No man, woman, or guru can make you happy. They may be tools, but ultimately, you have to do the work. And your own backyard is a great place to start. I'm Maria Shriver. Thanks so much for watching. Good night.
Later, Melissa Gilbert, Luke Tarsitano of Fudge, and the music of Dr. John on NBC's Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Your local news is next.